welcome everyone to the 2021 Northern Kentucky Restoration Weekend. My name is Christopher Myers and I'm serving as the moderator for this session. Please use the chat function of Zoom to ask your questions throughout the presentation. Please also let us know through chat if you have any problems hearing or seeing the speakers. Our speakers today are Rebecca Weber and Pete Rodish. Rebecca Weber is with Huff Realty. Pete Rodish is with Liberty Mutual. Rebecca is a full-time realtor licensed in both Ohio and Kentucky with a passion for historic architecture and urban living. As a member of Covington's Urban Design Review Board, she is able to guide clients in their renovation and restoration projects to meet historic preservation guidelines. She's been with Huff Realty since obtaining her license in 2002. In 2006, she was recognized by Cincinnati Magazine as one of the top performing professionals in the region. Rebecca has been a member of the Cincinnati Area Board of Realtors Circle of Excellence since 2010. And Pete Rodish has been with Liberty Mutual since 1982. He attended NKU and later graduated magna cum laude with an associate's and bachelor's degree from Thomas More College. Because it is important to give back, he has served on various committees with the Northern Kentucky Chamber, Crescent Springs Park and Development Committees, Greek Church Parish Council, and the Panayini or Greek Festival Leadership Team. He currently serves on the board of Junior Achievement of OKI and was a past president of AHEPA, a Greek philanthropic organization. Thank you both for coming here. And the title of this session is How to Buy, Finance, and Insure Your Historic Property. Please take us away.
Well, thanks for having us today. And it's a little awkward just because we are usually very interactive with the audience to see who's working on projects and what specific needs are. And we usually have a third person that's with us. Her name is Steph Adams, and she specializes in renovation financing. She kind of always steals the show because everybody always wants to know how they can finance fun construction projects. So I just wanted to put this up on the screen here to start, but I want to, and it's going to be a little awkward for me, but I wanted to switch over to some information that came from Steph. Okay, so this is the types of loans that Steph provides. She does a range of different type of loan products, from FHA to VA to conventional, and now most recently a USDA repair loan. And there's varying degrees of things that can be incorporated into renovation loans, where what they offer is a nice low down payment for the buyer to start a renovation project. It's a little bit of a complicated process in terms of you really have to know exactly what you're asking for. And that means that you have to have some professionals around to help guide you through how much things cost and exactly how your project's going to come together. But I can also, if anybody wants to put their emails in the chat, we can collect emails and I can send these out to folks at the end of all this so that you can look through all this. It's a pretty powerful matrix of products that she offers. And also the minimum credit score is, it's fairly minimal at 620. And the interest rates are certainly competitive. I think that she gave this to me last week. So the interest rates are on par, a little bit higher. A lot of people, once they get through their renovation financing, they'll go ahead and refinance out of it when it's done and get the PMI off, because you'll usually have your 20% equity in there. But it's fairly detailed what each product carries, and she's just got a little write up here of each renovation loan program, and I've got her information there. And I'm going to switch to another one.
And while you're switching, I did go ahead and put her website into the chat for everyone, so feel free to check that out too.
This is a really handy checklist that helps us when we walk through a property, and this applies even if you're just buying a property without a renovation loan. These are the basic minimum property standards that basically government guaranteed loans are going to be looking for, that when there's an appraisal that happens, that's a little bit more in depth in its scope. This is a good checklist just as a regular buyer to even have, but these are sort of the things that the appraiser is looking for. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more in the other presentation that I'll do. The big ones that I run into a lot are peeling paint, electric functions. When selling historic properties, we run into knob and tube wiring all the time, where part of the electric has been updated and part of it hasn't. And these appraisers seem to be really good at sniffing that out. And then that becomes a work order that, we are responsible to fix prior to closing the transaction. So a house has to have appliances, it has to have functioning utilities, has to have handrails in certain places. There can't be termites. The windows all have to work. So when you're selling an old house, if you've got the original wood windows with the ropes, all those have to be operational, and things like that. So this is a really amazing checklist to have in your back pocket. So I'm going to stop that one. Sorry, I'm going back and forth. Okay, there we go. Okay, so a little bit about me. Just Christopher did a great job of explaining that, explaining who I am. I've been licensed since 2002, and my main focus is on urban living in Cincinnati and Kentucky. And with that comes a lot of old houses and historic preservation. And I joined the Urban Design Review Board in 2008. And in 2020, the city of Covington changed its zoning code, and that board changed into the Board of Architecture and Development. So there's still a historic preservation component to that. So I still sit on that board. I've renovated 6 historic properties myself, and my residence in Main Strasse won a historic preservation award in 2008. So I'm a supporter of this event, and I've been participating in this event since it started. Pete, Steph, and I have done this presentation since this event started. And I don't even know how many years it's been now, probably 10.
Yes, this is the 10th year.
The 10th year, right? I was right. So I want to start by talking about the current market and where we are today. I kind of have the same framework for the presentation that I do all the time, but there are some challenges in the current market that can't be ignored. They're fairly large obstacles. It doesn't mean that we can't work through them, but I just want to bring those to the forefront. Right now in real estate, we're facing a historically low inventory. There's way more buyers than there are houses to buy, and that's driving prices up, and it's making competition incredibly fierce out there. The other thing that's happening simultaneously with that is that material costs for new construction and for existing renovations, the material costs have been escalating. And I did verify it this morning that lumber prices are up over 280%. They're saying it's a pandemic for lumber right now. And that's a real issue when dealing with pro forma and when you're putting a construction budget together. Skilled labor is also difficult to find. And appraisals are also challenging in the sense that because inventory is so low, there's a significant lack of data. So appraisers are supposed to pick 3 active listings and 3 sold listings to give to the underwriter. And sometimes they're not able to capture that because there just isn't enough data out there. So like I said, I just want to put those out in the forefront so we can keep those in mind as we're going through all of the different things I'm going to talk about. So when we're talking about entering, and usually I'm asking for participation from the audience who's working on a project, because I like to sort of apply it to real life. But we always start by, when I'm working with a buyer that's going to renovate a property, knowing what we can afford finished all in, and then how we're going to get there. And then I encourage people to select a good team of professionals who are experienced at what they do, from realtor to inspector to lender to contractor. The contractor is going to be in your life for quite some time. So we want to make sure that the right team of professionals is guiding you. We want to make sure that we have a project that has a scope that is manageable, that it's not going to be way over anybody's head, that you're not going to get into it and then need to get out of it. And so when we're shopping for historic property, it's, do we renovate it or do we not renovate it? Are there partial things that need to be done, or are there things that can be left alone? Historic houses that need renovation, in theory, cost a lot less than a historical home that's been fully remodeled. So you pay a premium to someone who has already remodeled a historic house. Determining the entire financial picture is critical. And we always encourage people to reserve cash, because especially with historic houses, whether they're renovated or not renovated, there's always another project and there's always something else to fix. The benefits of restoring a historic house, and this house is sort of, it was a very long project that a friend of ours did. This house had been left in grave disrepair, and they were able to insulate it, put in a hybrid heating system, high efficiency hot water systems. So you have the opportunity to make an old house more efficient moving forward. And this is a big house. This is over 3,500 square feet. And it really did need to have, for modern day, some energy efficient components to it. We always encourage people, if they have the time and the scope and the capacity, to utilize historic income tax credits. And this particular house did that. This was a home. Well, I'll just come clean. It was Beth Johnson's house, who was the former historic preservation officer for Covington. So she utilized every tool that she could to make the house more efficient and to offset all the costs.
And if I can jump in, so on that note, for tax credits, we do have a session tomorrow at 11 a.m. applying for historic tax credits. That's going to be presented by Mike Radicke and Eric Rawlings from the Kentucky Heritage Council.
And those are the folks that we work with when we do tax credit projects. So they're the go-to source. They're wonderful. When you renovate a house, you get to pick what you want and not what someone else picked or thought was a good idea at the time. This house, again, had some unfortunate choices that were made for it. And through this renovation process, she was able to correct those things and really ended up with just an absolutely amazing property. So you can utilize a 203K loan, and we, I send a lot of people to Steph because it's a really good fallback, whether we're going to go full in on a construction project or we run into a situation where I would buy this house if it had central air, or if I could move this wall, or if this kitchen was updated, or if I could move these things around, or if I could add a garage, or the roof needs to be replaced. You can utilize these types of loans to do minimal upgrades to the property if it's 95% there and you just need to alter one little thing. I just find buyers rule out certain houses because something is missing, and it's always like, well, what if we could put that in then at a fairly cost-effective way to do it? And that first slide talks about a more simple, streamlined type of renovation loan. So the potential for renovating houses. Now, again, we're talking about a market where we have very, very low inventory. But you just want to consider it. Does it have good bones? This particular house was really an amazing piece of architecture. And they had to do a lot of replacement of the millwork on the exterior of it. Does the area that it's located in support your full financing budget? This particular property, just before it went listed, had a fairly significant sewer backup because the sewer lateral was collapsed. And thankfully, we discovered that, but that added, and I won't divulge the number that added to the budget, the overall budget of the house. But that not only did that cost the owner some time getting it on the market, but it also seriously added to it was an unforeseen cost that he just didn't have budgeted for it. The question is it priced right? Is sort of an anomaly right now because the prices are escalating faster than we can really keep track of it, and a lot of prices don't make sense. There are deals that you can find out there, but they may not offer the location that you're necessarily thinking. So it's a tricky market right now, but we're equipped to be able to do it. So the other important parts of it is a lot of times when you find a house that needs to be rescued, you'll find it doesn't have pipes or it doesn't have electric because that's been damaged, or it's missing a roof or something along those lines. And I always believe in doing a whole house inspection, irregardless of whether or not it has pipes. It's a good amount of upfront information to help you understand exactly the direction that you need to go mechanically in terms of your renovation. It would help you uncover environmental hazards that may be hiding, structural damage that also may not be necessarily visible on a first pass or a second pass. When you use a renovation loan to finance a reconstruction project, that there is they send out what's called a HUD consultant, and that person is the liaison between the bank and you and the contractor, so that they can translate the construction budget to the underwriter who's financing everything, so that you can get your construction draws. And when you do a whole house inspection up front, it's important because you can take that information and then that becomes part of your overall construction budget that then becomes part of your loan, hopefully. So when we talk about doing renovation projects, we always tell people, I always say that houses are like people, and people fall in love with certain houses because they have special features or things about them. I always also recommend that you hire an architect to just keep everything in line, especially up front with existing drawings. Helps you figure everything out. It helps the quoting process go a lot faster when you have all the room dimensions. Helps you be able to quote a kitchen, move a bathroom, and all that stuff. And when you're going around getting quotes, everyone will try to make suggestions for you. I always recommend that people stay on track with the vision that they saw for the property. And I'll talk about two projects that were pretty in-depth projects. This is a project that I was grateful enough to work on. It was a 9-unit development. It was basically being used as a warehouse at 4th and Scott. This picture shows the top left picture shows the corner as it once stood, and then it became a liquor store. And we got to work with the developer to turn it into 9 townhomes, and they've all sold, and it's just a phenomenal piece of architecture. And then this one is my personal project that I'm working on right now, which is an old store that was built in the Wallace Woods neighborhood. It was one of 2 commercial structures in the Wallace Woods neighborhood. And we bought it because the previous owner wrapped it in siding, and I couldn't stand it. So we bought it, and we've been restoring it. We're doing a tax credit on it, and it'll be 2 apartments and a storefront that will house a couple of businesses for one of my partner's partner. So, but we took all that siding off and we installed windows on the second floor sleeping porch, and it's been a really fun long project. So that's all I've got. Are there questions?
Yes, a question came up. So you mentioned keeping records to set the record straight for the future.
Yes.
So what kind of documents are you referencing there? Like just a checklist of what's been changed, or maybe who's worked on the house?
Well, it's important to keep your inspection report so that you know the problems that you're basically curing through the construction project process. And then as you do those things, you want to keep those records. At some day, that house will be sold, or there will be a new owner, and that owner will need to know how those things were fixed and what was done. So it's good. I always make binders. I'm a paper person. I always make binders, and I keep all those records, so that that can stay with the house. Houses gather their own belongings like people do. Well, so when you take a door out, you store it somewhere in the house, and that stays with the house. Whenever I sell a historic property, we're always, making sure that the house's belongings are in one location for the next owner. So,
I'll just add, I think it would be great if houses came with like paint color lists, like what
Mhm.
this room is or what that surface is. Makes it much easier to touch up stuff if you need to.
I generally find that there's always a small section in the basement where people leave their paint colors.
Hmm.
The paint cans, whether the paint's still good or not, it's another matter, but at least you've got a record of it. When I'm doing a renovation project, like I said, I always make a binder and I put the paint chips right in on one page, and I keep them in the binder. Maybe when we go back to in person, I'll bring one of my binders so people can see that.
Great. Well, thank you. I think that's all the questions we have at the moment.
Okay.
Pete, were you ready?
I am. So let's get this rolling, and then we'll talk about everybody's favorite subject. Okay, sorry about that. So, okay, welcome everybody. So thanks for having me. I appreciate that. I am Peter Rodish from Liberty Mutual. Been working with Rebecca Weber for ages, and I'm proud to insure a lot of properties that Rebecca has sold, and a lot of properties that have been renovated. And we kind of specialize in, outside of the normal auto, home, life kind of thing. A lot of people come to us when they're buying a property, like Rebecca says, that needs a lot of love and whatnot, and have been big projects. I feel really good about what Liberty Mutual offers and what we do. So that's been a big part of our business. Chris did a little bio on me, which is great. Or Christopher, I'm sorry, which I appreciate. I also want to say I work a lot with realtors like Rebecca, and I had the honor in 2019 to be affiliate of the year. So that's affiliates that work with the realtors and whatnots, and that just goes to show what we do. So let's talk about insurance. Okay, so everybody's favorite subject, right? You got to insure the house. Again, Chris, I'm just checking in. Can everybody see that? Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So we're going to do a quick introduction to home insurance. We're going to understand the core coverages. I actually added a couple things in here that I've been using forever. You're going to love that. We'll explore some additional optional coverages and talk about a couple things. So like Rebecca said, you've invested a lot of time in selecting the right house, right? Or the right property. A lot of people base, unfortunately, their insurance coverage on premium. While we know premium has to be, it has to be in a budget, right? So I get that. But if that house is leveled, if that house catches on fire, we have to be able to go in and rebuild that house. Okay. So the first question is, will your coverage pay to repair your house? If someone stole your stuff from your car, how would that be covered? What about other damaged structures on your property? A lot of these properties have detached garages. And if you need to stay somewhere, so we did have a a big fire with a client that had redone a lot of stuff. They had to go somewhere and live while the property was being repaired or while they found another property. You got to find the home coverage that fits your lifestyle. We don't need to talk about renters or condo because this is really about home insurance. But if anybody does need that, they can reach out to me because we do a lot of that. But the home coverage, we're going to talk about the dwelling. We'll talk about outbuildings. We'll talk about personal property, loss of use, which is huge, liability, which is can be even bigger, and then of course medical payments. So again, this is just a sample. Now, normally under normal circumstances, I'd be writing this up on the board. We'll take somebody, like Rebecca said, we'll take somebody that's buying a house and we'll actually do an evaluator on it. So the first thing we want to know is, what are we insuring the property for? So on the declaration page, you're going to see your dwelling, what we're covering it for, outbuildings, which is usually 10%, the stuff inside, which is your personal property, loss of use, which is unlimited. Again, loss of use, if you had a fire, had to live somewhere else, we'll put you up somewhere while it's being repaired, and liability. So how much coverage or dwelling coverage do you need? It's kind of a question that normally I would bring up, right? So what doesn't really determine the dwelling coverage? The type of house, the materials you use to build your house, like Rebecca talked a lot about, the size of the lot, and whether your house has a fireplace. So basically, we want to insure the property for full replacement cost of the home, which could be, and it's almost always going to be, especially in these properties, more than market value. To Rebecca's point earlier, she talked about cost of building materials. Rebecca, I think you put in there 280% on lumber. I've got a client that works at Forge Lumber. He's like, Pete, we're seeing it from over 250 to 400% right now. And I think, and so a lot of insurance companies starting in July will be doing a redo on replacement cost because things have just skyrocketed. So we don't really care about, we care, but the size of the lot your house sits on, because the lot's a lot, right? So if I have to rebuild a house in Covington or Beechwood Road or Arcadia or wherever, we want to look at the physical structure. Coverage A, dwelling, that coverage applies to the residents on the property, and outbuildings, again, key. A lot of times we find, especially on some of these older properties, that your property has an outbuilding that may be worth more than $35,780 in this particular case. And so we want to address that by being very consultative. All right, so you're gonna love this, right? That's why I put that on there. Okay, so I've been using this since 1982. All right, and here's the deal: coverages have changed, but perils have not. So a lot of things, and my clients want copies of this almost every time I show it to them. So again, I want to talk about insuring against these physical perils, right? So big things you're covered for under a homeowner policy: fire and lightning, windstorm and hail, explosion, somebody drives into your house, which has happened, breakage of windows, rider civil commotion, damage by aircraft, that also happened, smoke damage, vandalism, theft. Liability is going to be key on and off property. Okay, so on property, especially people that are renovating homes, you have people coming and going on these properties. Okay, so we want to be able, if somebody falls down, gets hurt, we want to make sure that we can take care of your assets. We want to make sure that if they sue you, you're covered. Off premise, could be golfing, could be anything that you're doing. Medical payments are covered. An insurance company is going to defend you in a liability suit, and damaged property of others. A couple other things: broad theft, broad vehicle damage. This happens where you drive into your own house or your own garage. You've got broad smoke damage, heating or heater losses, weight of snow, big one, collapse of building, falling objects. This is one of the biggest questions we get in some of the older areas. If the tree falls on my house, am I covered? If the tree falls on my neighbor's house, am I okay for coverage? If the tree falls on your house and hits your house, that's covered. Technically, if the tree that's alive falls on your neighbor's house, you have no liability. If the tree was dead and you knew it and it was brought out, then you would have liability. Just as if the neighbor's tree fell on your property, that would be under That would be under falling objects under your own home. Water damage, obviously, we see a lot. Could be from a refrigerator, could be a sink, could be a dishwasher, bathtub, whatever it might be. Freezing, electrical injury to appliances, water seepage, big one. Spillage of chemicals, we don't see a lot. That's going to be like paint. Overheated appliances, accidental damage, and other accidental losses. So which items are insured with personal property coverage? It would be personal property in my home and garage, personal items in my vehicle, personal items anywhere in the world. All those things are covered under your personal property. Belongings don't really have to be at home to be covered. They can be anywhere in the world, and certainly we've covered those losses. Personal property we talked about, 260,850. That's usually enough, which is 75% of the dwelling. If you have a fire, and we talked about somebody that had a fire today. If you have a fire or something happens, we will put you up somewhere to live and pay for all expenses while your house is being repaired, or we figure out where we're moving you. The deductible. So normally it's 500, 1,000, or 2,500. A lot of my clients will say, "Pete, can we raise the deductible to save money?" I will do that for them, but a lot of times raising a deductible does not really save you that much. So we'll take a look at that for you, and we'll craft it as we need to. Personal liability coverage protects against injuries occurring on your property. So the liability piece is something extremely, extremely important. So when does liability coverage protect against injuries occurring on your property? Only if the injury happens to me or a family member, only if the injury occurs when I or a family member witness it, or only if the injury happens to a visitor. If you chose C, that's great. Keep in mind, you cannot be liable to yourself, right? So that's anybody that's on your property or off your property. Again, talks about the liability, medical payments on your homeowner policy. This is a big thing, personal liability umbrella. When should you consider an umbrella policy? Now think about the work you're doing. Think about how you're doing this on your property. And if somebody were to get hurt or injured, if you have assets to protect, you own more than one home. A lot of people that have rentals do. Own a rental. Do you have a pool? Is there a trampoline? Are you a pet owner? High earning potential? Do you have a new driver? And then I put a quick little link here. I'm not going to go to it because I don't want to have problems, but we use Liberty Mutual and RLI. There are a million scenarios on why you need a liability umbrella. And by the way, liability umbrellas can range anywhere from $168 to $400 a year, depending on cars and properties and whatnot. Additional coverages, water backup. That's a big one people forget about. They forget about it because a lot of times people are buying an older house, or people are buying a house where the basement may not be finished. The big thing is this is from direct physical loss by water, which backs up through sewers or drains, including sump pumps. So it covers carpet, padding, drywall, furnace, appliances, and the big one is removal. That's huge. Removal with an empty basement with sewage can be $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 and a nightmare to take care of. A couple other things you may want to consider: ID fraud. Sinkhole collapse we don't see around here. You're going to see this more in southern Kentucky, where you're going to see people that could have built a house, or a house could have been built over a mine. Again, you don't see that. You see that more in Eastern. Home computer endorsements, very big. And if you have jewelry and such, you're going to want to schedule those items.
Pete, we had a
Oh,
question
I'm sorry. Yeah.
on that. No, that's okay. So the question was, if you go back a slide, those coverages, are
Mhm.
they typical, or are they something that you have to request as a special add-on to the standard insurance policy?
They are there. You have to add these on. They're not covered automatically. But we're going to uncover this when we do a consultative chat with you. So we're going to talk about water backup. That's an additional endorsement that can range from anywhere from $50 to $100 a year. ID fraud, we would bring that up. You're not going to really mess with sinkhole around here. Home computer endorsement, that'll come up if you have more than $2,500. So $2,500 is covered automatically. Anything over and above that, and no matter what, we actually add a lot of home computer endorsements. It covers laptops, netbooks, notebooks, iPhones, iPads. The mobile phones are big. Do you have a kid at college? Do they have a laptop? Do they have an iPad and stuff like that? This takes a deductible from, say, 500 down to 50 and expands the coverage to almost all risk. And of course, scheduled property, we're going to ask you about that. Jewelry, here's some of the things, right? Jewelry, fine arts, guns, stamps and coins, musical instruments. I have a few customers that actually Rebecca sold houses to that have a lot of musical instruments. And now those are covered, but they take them off property every now and then. The endorsement's not that much. To schedule jewelry, think about $12.50 per thousand. Was that good, Christopher?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sure, absolutely. We were talking about some of the discounts, and a lot of companies have discounts, but these are the things that we're going to bring up. Biggest one is exclusive group savings. So we have more affinity programs than any company in the industry. So if you work at a place like Delta, City, Northern Kentucky University, if you're an alumni of Thomas More, if you work at Mercy Hospital, et cetera, this UPS, this goes on forever and a day. We are part of their platform. Multi-policy discounts, bundling's a big thing. So I would tell you when you're getting quotes, try to bundle your insurance if you can. Protective devices, are you putting an alarm on there? That's big. Insured to value, that's huge. Insuring to value, I want you to keep in mind that when you're insuring your property, if you're working with us, we're very, very rarely going to veer off of replacement cost. And here's why. If you ever have a claim or a loss, or I'm standing in front of your house like I did with a customer, and their house is on fire, they're not going to ask me how much did I save on my insurance. They're going to ask me, Pete, please tell me that I can rebuild this house. And we've got a great client that happened to, and we did everything she needed and more. Again, some of the other discounts, I do want to talk about that new renovated home discount. A lot of people will say, well, Pete, I'm buying a house that was built in 1890 or 1910. We are one of the only companies that if you're doing these four things, we're going to make that house almost brand new for insurance purposes. So are you completely regutting the wiring, the plumbing, the HVAC, and the roof? If you're doing those four things, that house becomes built in 2021. We know when it was built, but for discounts, we look like it was built in 2021. Those discounts are huge. The new roof of all the discounts, that's the big one. So even if you're not renovating the entire thing, but you're putting a new roof on, that's huge. Coverage benefits with Liberty
Pete,
Mutual. Yep.
Sorry to jump in. Okay,
Nope.
so there's another question then on determining like what's your scale for determining if it's renovated or not? So you mentioned the roof being new, but what are some other pieces that qualify as being newly renovated?
Those are the big four things. That's really it right there. Has wiring been completely gutted, not just updated, but have they pulled the wiring out of the property and put all brand new wiring in? The HVAC, has that been totally removed, gutted, and updated? And has the plumbing been totally updated? And the roof, yeah.
So then are those things where if you're a property owner and you do those things, you've owned the house for a couple of years and you decide, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and just redo all the wiring. Like that's an easy thing to do. Or you get a new roof, year 5 in. Is that something where if someone has a policy with Liberty Mutual, they can say, hey, I've just done this. What kind of rates, how does this affect my rates?
Yeah, so let's say, for example, and the biggest one we're going to see is somebody's going to have a new roof put on. Okay, so let's say I insure your property, the premium is, and I'm just throwing things out now, let's say it's $1,000, for your home policy, and you put a brand new roof on and you call me, like I just had a customer literally do yesterday. It's like, Pete, I just want to let you know I got a brand new roof. I sent you over the receipts, although we don't necessarily need them. That saved him $200 on his home insurance. So that was substantial. It just varies on where the property is, for rating, is it, and and how it is. But we've seen premiums go down dramatically because somebody's put a new roof on, just as if they have a roof claim, we'll go then update it because they just had a new roof put on. So those are really the 4 big things for the discounts. Now, you don't have to do all 4. If you just happen to do the roof and let's say electric, that's going to reduce it as well. Helpful?
Very, thank you.
Good, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I do want to like interject something that, and I meant to do it earlier, and it's kind of big. Rebecca did a checklist at the beginning. So the checklist was what kind of shape is the property in, right? And what kind of things are on there. Insurance companies have a checklist as well. Now, where we differ a little bit is we know, like, if you come to me and you go like, Pete, I bought this house, it's just, you know, and Rebecca knows because she sold them, right? And then the people are going to do a renovation project, and it's like, Pete, I want to let you know that we're going to be under construction for the next 6 months or whatever. We add an endorsement that we know the house is under construction. We know that it's hopefully going to be completed in 6 months, but we also add on an endorsement called theft of building materials. You want to add that if your company allows that. Theft of building materials is going to be up to $5,000. And it's basically if somebody has brought and they dropped off a lot of wood, or you know, items that you're going to be using your reno, and maybe it's a day or 2 before you get to it, and somebody pulls their truck up and steals it. Okay, theft of building materials when you're renovating a house. But we know that that property is under construction. So if our investigators or our underwriting team comes out and, you know, they take a picture, they drive by, they don't do it all the time, but they do it sporadically. If they come out and look at that, we want to make sure that if there's, like I had a client, if there's sinks and toilets sitting in your driveway, we want to know it's because you're putting all new stuff in. And so that's very helpful. So whether it's with us or not, ask for that endorsement. You know, a couple other things with Liberty Mutual, claims is probably the biggest thing on there. Local, you know, agents, personal property replacement cost. If you happen to have a claim or a loss, they're coming to you, and they can do all the replacement cost on your personal property directly to you. You don't have to go out and do a thing. Emergency home repair. I'm going to tell you, every company's got that, or they better have that, because claims don't happen 9 to 5. They happen at 3 in the morning for some reason. We offer a thing called Coverage Compass. This is really going to help you, because when you're with us, this Coverage Compass will identify things that maybe you don't have. So you've got credit card liability, you've got a Home Protector Plus, which, by the way, expands your house for a replacement cost. So if I insure your house at $500,000, you have another $100,000 if there's a gray area. Okay. Blanketed jewelry, inflation protection, etc. So this helps us identify, and our clients identify, what they need. Sorry. You're going to have the mobile app. So a lot of people go, what do I do in the event of a claim? We want you to call in anytime. You can actually go right to the app. You can take pictures, and you can upload photos right to our claims department. You can file a claim within 5 minutes. Now, the other thing, and I think I'm almost finished here, but the other thing with Liberty Mutual, we now look like an agency. So before, where some companies only offer one product, we now actually have 25 different companies that we work with. And so those companies will let us offer products to clients where maybe Liberty Mutual is not a fit. Could be a long-term rental somewhere, maybe in a protection class 9, which means it doesn't have fire hydrants, etc. They may have an antique auto. We now represent Haggerty. Jewelers Mutual, which is one of the top jewelry companies around. The beauty about insuring your jewelry with Jewelers Mutual, if you have a homeowner claim, or I'm sorry, jewelry claim, it does not affect your homeowner rates. So most people that have jewelry on their home policy, if they have a claim, it affects those rates for 5 years. We now offer Jewelers Mutual, which is great. Again, some of the top companies for auto, home, rental, etc. We're able to shop everything for you, which is wonderful. Other than that, if anybody has any questions and they want to reach out to me via email or call, we'd love the opportunity to work with people. More than happy to do a consultative quote. We're very big on that, making sure you have not only the right premium, But on these properties or any property, we want to make sure that if you have a loss, that you're insured to the right amount and you have the right coverage. Other than that, thank you so much for inviting me today.
Thank you so much, Pete. Thank you, Rebecca, as well. So I've put in the chat both of the websites for Pete Rodish and for Rebecca Weber, so make sure that you check that out. We want to go ahead and thank them for joining us today to talk about buying, financing, and insuring your historic home. Our next session coming up is going to be box gutter repair with Eric Hempelman, Hempelman Construction. And I also just want to mention that we're going to take a short break from our sponsor, which is Rhonda Deeg with RLD Glass, Art, and Restoration. And so the poll that's coming up is, what is your next project? How appropriate, because we were just talking about insuring all of these historic properties. So be sure that you stick around for that. But thank you again, Pete and Rebecca.
You got it. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day.
Okay.
All right.